So last time I was talking about that sort of period in the lead up to getting my actual results from all the biopsies, and I talked a little bit about HRT because that was a fundamental thing for me and very important that I was able to keep hold of my HRT. And what I did for that, as soon as I knew that that was potentially at risk, I got straight on to the menopause doctor, Louise Newsom, and searched for all of her episodes that might have mentioned breast cancer at all, downloaded them all and did like a speed listen so that I was totally educated. Then I went online and I absorbed as much information as quickly as I could so that when I went back for my results appointment with the surgeon, that I had all the facts to my fingertips, including the nice guidelines that I participate. I have a say in my treatment. I'm not done to. And I thought, I need to be very careful. I also, my husband's daughter is in the medical field, and she doesn't live near us. So we had a long call where she coached me on how to articulate myself with people such as surgeons and people in the medical profession who might not be used to patients like myself who ask perhaps more questions than the average and aren't necessarily going to comply with all of their advice, i.e. stop taking HRT. Okay, whereas I was going to be, no, I don't agree. So I needed to arm myself with the facts, and I did that. So I had that call, and it was a bit like an interview really, but sort of teaching myself how to talk to people in those positions confidently. And also it was a good opportunity for me to rehearse the facts that I'd got, so the nice guidelines, the stuff from Dr. Louise Newsom, and she's such a pioneer in this space in the UK. She's amazing. What she's done to bring this to the forefront and make this so important, and what people have learned about HRT and the menopause is phenomenal, and we need more people just like her. So I was armed with my facts. That was one thing. And then of course it was managing my anxiety, because even though I talked about mindset and said, I was working hard, I got my meditations, I got my spike mat, I'd got my squishmallow, which is a very tactile thing to sort of like a bit like a stress ball but bigger as a kid's toy. I'd got subliminals, which I would play. Francesca Amber has these. She has a health one. She has others as well. I also used the mindful movement. They had nighttime meditations that you could that would keep going throughout the night. And if I woke up in the night, middle of the night, which I would do, I would wake up with a very anxious, like panic. Sometimes I would just have to cry, or sometimes I would journal, but sometimes I would put one of those on and do some breathing. And it would help to sort of just bring me back down. But I think what's important is none of this was easy. And I think it's because there's quite a bit of time distance now between it happening. But none of it was easy. I had to dig incredibly deep to get through those weeks. I can remember going to the appointment to get my results, and I sat in the waiting room, very busy waiting room, and I remember thinking, they had the radio on. Now you'd think, wouldn't you, in a breast cancer waiting room, that they would have calming, relaxing music. No, they had a local radio station banging out pop music and chat. It felt very stressful for me. And I thought, let me just do something like soothing. So my husband was with me, but I also took my earbuds. And I said, I'm just going to quietly do I said, you listen out for my name if they call. And I did a quiet sort of breathing meditation for about 10 minutes to sort of bring myself into the present moment. Now that was hard, really bloody hard. So I don't mean to come across as if I'm trivializing any of this, as if I glided through those 2 weeks, because I really didn't. I just used these techniques. Sometimes I just lie on the floor, like my back on the floor, and just feel the ground holding me. But it was bloody hard, and I'm still working. I think that was a good distraction for me, but do you know what, in hindsight, if anyone's in this position, the first piece of advice I would say is, if you can, if this is possible for you, take a week off from work. Go away somewhere quiet with a loved one or on your own, to think, to get present, and just to absorb what is happening to you before you get on that roller coaster of appointments and treatments and operations and surgeries and more appointments and letters coming. And because the booklets that come, I mean, they're amazing. What the NHS here does is amazing. But like the tsunami of booklets that came and I had to read, and it was just sometimes just too much. So I had to work very hard mindset wise in that week to keep myself grounded, to stop spiraling. I think meditation and breathing and lots of hugs from my husband were probably the best. But yes, I woke every night multiple times, sometimes panic stricken, dripping with sweat, crying or terrified. And yeah, it was just a very, very difficult week. And then I had to tell my parents, and that was incredibly difficult. They don't live near me. They're very supportive, but again, they were shocked because I was, 50, just coming up to 51. So we kind of get to, that was my weeks coming up to that, and what I did, and it was difficult, and I feel like I'm rambling now, and I probably am. And then I got to the appointment, and I met my surgeon, and there was a nurse there, and they told me that I was grade 1, stage 1. They said 16 by 18. I now know when they did the surgery and the lumpectomy and they removed it, it was 15 by 15 millimetres. But that was their assessment. They were assessing it from the biopsies, grade 1, stage 1, which means the cells hadn't changed too much. And they were offering me a wide excision lumpectomy. I booked that for 28th of April with this surgeon, amazing. And they said that they would also need to remove some lymph during the surgery to check if the cancer had spread. She said it would be 2 or 3 of the sentinel lymph, so I had to obviously then learn all about the lymph, and of course you can guess by now that's exactly what I did. I went and educated myself on the lymph, and because I was on the fence whether I wanted to allow that to happen, and then they said depending on what that came out, that it would be highly unlikely that I would need chemotherapy, and I would need radiotherapy, which would come afterwards. And it was a huge relief, but also I was still in that I don't quite believe this is happening to me. So yeah, that's where I got to. I think it was a Thursday, got those results, and then it was right, I need to go home and tell people. But I think, if I can remember correctly, wide excision lumpectomy, I was told they'd have to take some of the sentinel lymph, and unless they found something in that, no chemotherapy and radiation. And so that was my task, was to go home and have a sort of, how do you say, celebration, but just this is so much better than it could have been result. And then to begin the journey of preparing for surgery and learning as much as I could about what was to come. And in my next episode I'll tell more about the conversation with my surgeon about radiation, because I'd listened to something on, I think it was a Louise Newson menopause podcast, about radiotherapy, and something that was used at some hospitals in the UK, and the conversation I had about HRT and how that progressed as well. So more to come.